Greetings and salutations, people of the internet. This is Master RBG. And you know, there's been an awful lot of speculation about the Pokemon game coming out for the Switch. A lot actually. And you know, it's got me to thinking about something that tends to come up every single time a new Pokemon game gets released. Because it is inevitable that somebody will look at the designs for the new Pokemon and say, wow, Game Freak's really running out of ideas. They should stop making Pokemon games. Seriously, it happens every time. And to be honest, it's a rather stupid statement in and of itself. Pokemon, from what I've seen, can be based on basically any of three different things. Either real-life animals, creatures that are from folklore, and creatures from mythology. Now, I don't know how many creatures are in mythology and folklore from every culture across the world collectively, but I do know that scientists have estimated, last chance they had the opportunity, that there are something like 8.7 million animals in the world. Well, 8.7 million species in the world. And that's only a rough estimate. There could very well be a lot more. Now, 8.7 million. We haven't even broken 1,000 Pokemon yet. So, until the day comes that we surpass 8.7 million, we're not even close to running out of ideas. Case in point, I'm just going to list off like 10 animals that have yet to be made into Pokemon, that I think actually could make some very interesting Pokemon. So, without further ado, let's get into this. Woo! Okay, so first up we have the Capybara. Now, as many rodent Pokemon as they have in the Pokemon games already, I am amazed that they have somehow skipped this big fella. The largest rodent on Earth does not have a Pokemon counterpart. We have rats, we have a multitude of mice Pokemon, but we don't have a Capybara. That is mind-blowing. You know, we could actually have fun if we actually made the Capybara into a Pokemon. Obviously, he'd probably be the normal type, but this guy would probably have pretty beefy defensive stats, just because he's freaking huge. And Pokemon tend to be even bigger than their real-world counterparts, so this guy would be monstrous in size. Probably bigger than people, quite easily. So, yeah, we could have some fun with this guy. Alrighty, next up, we have the Flamingo. You know, as many bird-type Pokemon as there are in the Pokemon universe, I'm kinda surprised they skipped this one. Maybe they're just biding their time. Either way, I could see a couple different ways this one could go. They could either try going the cutesy, nicknamey way of doing this and call it the Flamingo and make it a fire flying type, or more likely they'll go the color theory method of this and make it a fairy flying type, which honestly seems like the more useful way to go, since right now there's already a few different fire flying Pokemon, but outside of Togepi's evolutions, there aren't any other flying fairy Pokemon, so yeah, I'm all for it being a fairy flying type. Could be fun, who knows. Okay, our next entry is, well, to be honest, it's a little more surprising than the others. A Dolphin. Just a Dolphin. Bottlenose, or any other kind really would be fantastic, but I'd kind of prefer a Bottlenose. Honestly, I understand why older generation games didn't have a Dolphin Pokemon, just because, well, okay, they're not native to those areas, or the only water in some areas were rivers and lakes. You don't get dolphins in those areas. But literally, 7th generation is based on Hawaii. You are surrounded on all sides by ocean. Dolphins do show up there. Why couldn't we have had a dolphin here? It makes no sense. it may be a while before we get another good opportunity or excuse to put a Dolphin Pokemon in a game, but darn it, next time, don't let it pass up. Seriously. Obviously, it'd be at least water or a water hybrid of some sort. Dolphins are pretty smart, so maybe it could evolve into a water psychic type. That could be fun to use. Anywho, moving on. Okay. Now, for our next entry, I realize that Pokemon exist not just as video game characters, but as cartoon characters, movie characters, trading cards, and of course, most importantly, plush and action figures. So, bearing that in mind, I present our next entry, the Alpaca. Now, seriously, if you can't make money making this into a cute plush animal, you don't know what you're doing. This one would probably be a normal type, although possibly a normal hybrid? Just hear me out here. Now, alpaca are extremely social animals, like extremely social animals. If they are all by themselves, they will get depressed and they will die. So, that should give you some indication of just how important it is that this thing have other creatures around it. So, its Pokemon counterpart should follow suit. It should be reflected in all aspects of this Pokemon. It should have access to a lot of healing moves and ally helping moves and general support moves. This could potentially be our new Chansey for whatever generation it shows up in. It should also have some sort of ability that gives it a power boost of some kind when it has allies in battle. Sort of like Plusle and Minun, but, you know, good. Also, and I'm just going to throw this out there should be something about the way it evolves that also feeds into this. Like, you should need a full party of Pokemon in order to evolve it, in addition to at least one other of this alpaca Pokemon on your team. And maybe the build of your team will determine how it evolves. Like, maybe it'll be blue and a water type if you had 2 or more water types on your team. Something like that, just something to make it unique, and give you an excuse to make more plushes out of it, Nintendo. Seriously, give me a call sometime. Okay, so our next entry kinda gets in here on a technicality. Our next one is a Mosquito. Now, I know one of the Ultra Beasts was based very loosely on a Mosquito, but let's face it, Mosquitoes aren't usually super duper buff and punch people really hard. That's not normally a Mosquito thing, so I'm looking for a more traditional Mosquito experience here. Sort of. Okay. So, obviously bug type, although I feel this one should be a little different depending on gender, because technically it's the female mosquitoes that are actually drinking blood. So, the female should be a bug dark type, since, you know, it's sucking blood. We can even go with a vampire theme if you want. Also, maybe give different evolutions for this one. You know, one for the male, one for the female, and please don't make this another one where it's like, oh, only 1/8 of this species is female. That's not the case. It should be 50-50. Alright. But, oh, obviously, this one's going to be more physically inclined, so more physical attack strength than special, and maybe give it access to some of those attacks that actually let you drain energy from your opponent. You know, drain HP. Because that seems extremely appropriate for this particular monster. Okay, time for the next one. Okay, we got a pretty fun one coming up next. We have the Pink Fairy Armadillo. And that name pretty much told you everything you need to know about this fella. Clearly, we're going to go with the fairy type for this one, and ground type, because, well, armadillos in general just look like ground type Pokemon. It seems legit. Probably going to have a defensive stat build with a leaning towards physical attacks. I realize that Sandshrew was loosely based on an armadillo, but technically this would be based on a different variety of armadillo, and hopefully wouldn't stray quite so far away from the source material. Okay, and next up we have Narwhals, narwhals swimming in the ocean, causing a commotion, cause they haven't been put in Pokemon yet. Okay, a little abrupt, I'll grant you. Clearly, this one would be a water type. Possibly also make it part steel, to accommodate for the horn. Just to give it a unique look, maybe make the horn a sword or something, give it a unique style all its own. Also, don't make this one super defensive, just give it pretty solid overall offensive stats. This is a dueling kind of monster. So it should be made appropriately. Not to mention we could use another water steel type, just saying. Okay, next up. We have the Hummingbird. Wow, really? Really, Game Freak? No Hummingbird yet. This is like one of the most iconic, interesting birds in the world. It's the only one that can fly backwards. And really, you're not gonna make this one, huh? Okay. Well look, I'll help you out here. Clearly, this would not be a defensive Pokemon. Obviously, it's gonna be either flying or normal flying. Obviously, have a focus on speed. More than likely, give this thing something like Speed Boost as an ability. Maybe have access to moves like Extreme Speed and what have you. Seems legit. Yeah, at the very least, this could be a very interesting Pokemon to utilize. Okay, so next up we have the Camel. Now, this one might be the only one on the list that actually has a legitimate excuse for not being used yet. Probably only because most regions, with only a couple exceptions, don't really have a noticeable desert region. So for that reason alone, camels don't really have much of an excuse to be in your average Pokemon region. Like, this one would have stuck out like a sore thumb in, say, I don't know, Gens 1 and 2, or Generation 3 for that matter, where it was given a 7.8 out of 10 for having too much water. So yeah, in those regions, a camel Pokemon wouldn't have made sense. But here we can wait. We can wait for the right time and place to put one in. And honestly, it could set itself apart pretty easily from other ground types, just by giving it an ability like Water Absorb, which for any other ground type would make no sense, but it's a camel. So this one could be either a ground type or a normal ground type. I'm all for it being normal ground, just to be unique. And Water Absorb would make perfect sense because camels have humps. And the humps just exist pretty much just to store large quantities of water. So yeah, perfect sense, and that gives it a unique twist that might actually make people want to use it. So it's a win-win. Okay, now, so far in the Pokemon games, we have had toads, we have had frogs, we have had salamanders, but you know what we haven't had? The only form of amphibian so far we've actually skipped? I hope I'm pronouncing them right. Castilians. Yes, that's right, Castilians. They're an actual thing. And they're basically limbless amphibians. So basically they look kind of like snakes. Unless they're really, really small, then they look kind of like earthworms. Either way, they're a unique creature that we've yet to have, and given where they can be found and what they're like, they'd actually make for really good Pokemon. Okay, so like I said, they're limbless. The reason we don't see them very often is because they're usually underground, or in the ground itself. They're burrowers. They like living underground where it's dark. They like living in underground rivers and lakes where it's nice and damp for them. Because again, they're still amphibians, even if they don't have limbs. I'm told they swim rather like eels when they're in the water, so that's a thing. they also have extremely thick skulls, so I'm assuming these guys probably have decent HP or at the very least really good defense. Also, much like frogs and salamanders, they can sometimes have very poisonous skin, so wouldn't be terribly surprised if this guy got made into a Pokemon that it would have a hidden ability of something like Poison Touch. But more importantly, this would finally give us some variety, some much desperately needed variety in Pokemon in caves. Finally, when you're surfing or fishing in the water inside a cave, you could run across one of these guys. And honestly, they could be really good. I would assume it would probably be a water-ground type. It would make the most sense. So, yeah. And that's pretty much the reason why this guy was saved for last, because I think he'd be the most interesting to have. Well, that about does it for this video, guys. Thank you for joining me this week. If you liked it, hit that like button for me. If you'd like to see more of my nonsense in the future, hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to be absolutely sure to get notified the moment I post new content here on YouTube. And if you'd like some suggestions for other videos made by yours truly, well, if you insist, why not check out these over here? Over here, you can check out my review for Flint Hook, a rather fantastic little roguelike game. And over here, if you're not quite finished with your Nintendo gaming fix, how about this list of 10 characters who could totally be in the next Smash Brothers, but probably won't be. Check out either one, they're both fantastic, just like you guys have been. Until next time, this is Master RBG, signing off.